Oh, well, to the YouTube channel, this is a topic which, to be honest, isn't the easiest to talk about. We've obviously been seeing the amount of racism that we've seen on social media in the past few days. This is obviously a problem that's stemmed for years. This isn't just something which has come about. Obviously, we've seen XR2 and Xavier and Marshall be the recent victims of online troll and abuse to the point where they've had to delete their accounts. And it's actually gone further on to one of their wives actually being abused as well. How we let it get that far? It's just ridiculous to talk about. And just to kind of obviously give you a background to who I am before I talk about a topic which is so sensitive to many. Um, I'm a technology student. I study business technology. I'm currently in my final year of uni. Um, Obviously, being a technology student and it being social media, I just thought it'd be perfect to give my views on a topic which I'm quite versed with, being obviously part of a minority, being British Pakistani. It comes with its struggles, obviously, being Muslim at the top of that. I'm not going to say I've been racially abused, to the extent that some people may have suffered, but putting yourself out on social media will always bring hate, will always bring trolls. But is that the right thing? Is that something which should be happening just because you've gone out there and achieved the dreams of many? Being a footballer in a Premier League, as the stats say, it's the 1% of the world's population make it into the Premier League. Like, I think it's less than 1%, to be honest. So to be at a stage in your life where you've pretty much made it, you're breaking through, being Martial, obviously being an experienced international, should that be, just because of your skin color, you're abused and you're trolled and you're hated on? Obviously, myself being a minority, obviously you can see I've got a beard. I've not always had one, but it comes with its connotation. People do judge. I've had people who have judged me for many things, and I've seen people being judged as well, such as being in a retail background. I've had people walk into a store, walk around, walk out, and then the minute they see someone of maybe their similar skin color be available, they walk back in and ask that person for help, and you've been stood there for maybe 5-10 minutes and you've asked them. So it's a crazy world we live in. It's not just social media, you actually experience it in real life now as well. So obviously, just talking on social media, something which I'm quite well versed in. Social media and the internet in general is just a massive legal grey area. It's one of the biggest areas which just hasn't been regulated to the degree it has. Like, it took the government 10 years, 11 years to update the Data Protection Act to the point where it's validated for today's age. Technology has grown to a rate which no one can really keep up with it. It's growing and growing, and it's just exponential how much it can do for us. It can bring us together. We're so lucky that we can speak to our favourite players, to the teams directly. I'm not saying everyone gets responded to, but the fact that we're allowed to do it and we're able to do it with so much ease, it doesn't really cost us anything other than having the ability to have internet, paying your bills for it, and that's about it. You can have a really cheap, a really inexpensive device, and you can talk to, some of your favourite personalities, from any background, if it's sports, celebrities on TV, to podcasters, to just your general YouTubers. So when we sit there and we look at everything that social media gives us, for us to turn around and use it to abuse and hate and troll, it's just crazy to think that in the 21st century, that's what we're doing with the amount of technology that we have. Obviously, we sit here and we blame the leaders and we blame governmental parties that aren't regulating the place that's needing it the most. The attention that's needed to it isn't being given. It's scary to think that no one cares that you're being called a monkey or a gorilla, or if you're an Asian being called brown, and that your skin color's got anything to do with the field that you're in. Social media is a place which allows you to express yourself. That's what it was there for, from Instagram, posting pictures and photography and sharing maybe food that you've made, to yourself, really. If you're a fitness instructor, you can make a video on there, you can post it and get, followers and get people watching that may be interested in what you do and what you have to offer. But what we've turned it into is just a all hell's going loose, on hate, on just general hate, and just abuse and troll, and we think it's banter, is what we're categorizing it as. Racism has become banter in a lot of people's eyes, and that's the worrying thing. Obviously, a lot of people think the solution of education is what needs to be done. What's education going to do when you've told them? You can tell them once, you can tell them twice, you can tell them 3 times. But then what does it do? You're telling them the same thing. It's doing the same thing, expecting different results. How does that work? Now, this has stemmed way back. We've seen this Chelsea, when they were on the train and they abused a French supporter who was black on the train. You had Danny Alves, who's had, banana skins and bananas thrown at him. And the way he handled it was actually quite funny, because I believe it was in the 70th minute of a match, and he got thrown a banana. Guess what? That gives you energy. He goes and whips it across and they score. So it's only so much you can do to the point of, retaliating against it. But it's about regulating it. It's about understanding why racism is such a bad thing, why abuse on social media is such a big thing. A lot of people say just ignore it, but how can you ignore a thing that's taken over the world? We've had the BLM protests, whether you agree with the BLM or not, it's one of the biggest things that happened in recent times. It's one of the biggest protests, the biggest organizations in recent time. People are willing to get COVID over it. So it shows you the importance, but the governments and the legislations and the leaders that run these social medias have decided just to ignore it and allow it to happen, and just say, you know what, we've got to fork out money, we've got to lose money just to regulate this, to make algorithms for it. It's a joke, And to be honest with you, we move on to what can we do? What are the solutions? And to be quite frank, education and just screaming education isn't something which is going to work, because the people who are now regulating or being the ambassadors of, end racism, who appointed them? I didn't. I didn't get a vote on it. I didn't get a say on whether, someone should be the leader. I know someone on, Twitter, I think it was Henry Winter, who came out and said that, John Barnes, and the comments on John Barnes and the replies to people about, look at what John Barnes is saying about education. The fact of the matter is, you say it once, you say it twice, you say it a third time, then you're just saying it for the sake of saying it. It's like, it's like when, me growing up as an Asian, mum would tell me once, twice, and then you get a slap. Some people do, man. They need a stiff jab in the mouth. That's exactly what they need sometimes. I'm not advocating violence here. I'm not saying that violence is the solution, but my point is that sometimes, you know what, you have to take those precautions. You have to go in and punish them hard, because blocking them off of social media, what does that do? Okay, we'll just make a new account. We'll do the same thing. We'll get the followers. We'll get the bandwagon back together, because they're a group. They're a gang. They're just going to support each other again. What makes them stop? Nothing, because we're not doing anything. If I went out and started screaming at a black guy, calling them, among you're a gorilla, you really think I'm going to get away with it? I'm going to get a stiff jab to my mouth. I'm just going to get knocked cold. I'm not going to do that. So why is it right to go on social media without a picture being supposedly fans of the club or fans of a player? A lot of the people are like, this person fan club, for example, they could be, Gunnar Sol's fan club, and they could just be going out and spouting bullcrap at people. And it's just crazy to see that. And one of the things is, I just don't think education is enough anymore, because I've grown up. I've been told being racist towards people is bad. I don't need to be told that. You're aware of it. You're just so aware of it. I don't sit there and go, to a black account and be like the N-word. Yes, granted, maybe because I'm an ethnic minority, I understand their pain. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe because the people who are leading us and are regulating these and making the laws that stand for us may have not ever experienced it in their life. Maybe they've been blockaded by this, because we know that a lot of the governments anyway, they do a study through private school and private education. Now, how much do you get exposed to? That's the real question, because me going to a public school that's run by the government is different to someone going to a private school. They could purposely put their kids through a private school they know is an all-white school, or an all-black school, or an all-Asian school even, and exclude them from the realities of life. I've grown up and I've made so many friends with so many different backgrounds, I've not seen a difference in them. I don't care whether you're black, white, brown, Chinese, whatever you, anything. It doesn't matter. Whatever you identify as well. The reality is that not enough is being done, because blocking someone's account doesn't stop them from continuing or going back on with a different name and continuing what they've always done. So, we sit there, we're bashing our heads, we're thinking as people as well, what's the possible solutions to this? A lot of people are saying ID verification. The reason why that is something which has not been done to date is because of the Data Protection Act and the way that it protects the people's data. You can actually, the issue is it can be overruled in courts, and many of Facebook and Twitter have won so many legal cases and court cases for the simple fact of not giving information away and not being given access to terrorist messages and all sorts. So when you start to now think about the message deeper, is that they're going to protect their own assets, they're going to protect their own money, losing followers, losing people and users on their platform will evidently lose the money, in the sense that they lose their marketable ability. They don't, people are going to spend money on sponsors if let's say, for example, you had 1 million and 900,000 of them happen to be racist, and you take that 900, even if you say 100,000 of them, now your marketable situation and the amount of viewers you reach becomes a lot less, and your marketing power becomes a lot less. And that's what they care about, because they're not regulated to protect us. They're not regulated. They don't have to do it. They'll do it because they're pressured by the government to do it, or they're pressured by the people to do it. But that's the problem. There's no pressure being put on media sites to regulate this. And when people talk about algorithms, that algorithms are a topic in itself, that it's near impossible, to end racism with algorithms and abuse and hate. Because let's say, for example, they ban the word monkey. Now, we talk about other industries within the field that are let's say wildlife, or they're in wildlife, they're vets, or they're, zookeepers or anything, and they say, oh, look, we've got a new monkey in our zoo. Now, the algorithm will determine that to be a racist just because the word monkey is. Now, the word monkey isn't actually racist. It's the way it gets used that becomes racist. So there's so many things that we can talk about, and there's so much that we can do as a society to end racism. Are we doing enough in ourselves? But the government needs to back this. They need to sit there and think, okay, how do we do it? Let's put the pressure on these organizations to regulate social media, to sit there and say, you know what? If we see any sort of racism, you're going to get banned and you're going to get a fine. We need to start allowing our data to be shared. And this is the problem where people think when we talk about data being shared, oh, they're going to use it, they're going to sell my data to marketing sites, and they're going to use it to market to me, or they're going to, it doesn't matter. They know who you are. You're not anonymous. You're not hidden from the government. They know who you are. And if they wanted to find you, they can. And that's part of the problem, is that they know who you are, but how come they don't do anything about it? And the fact of the matter is, for ordinary people like myself and many people who probably watch this, we don't know the answers because it's never been questioned. We've never got the government to question this. We've never had regulatory bodies to, question racism and the abuse. Because when the abuse is minor, or one or two people do it, yes, you can ignore it. But as we can see, it made a man quit his Twitter. That's how powerless he felt when he plays for a multi-billion-pound organisation in Manchester United. You're telling me a man cowered away because of, well, not cowered away, but he had to delete his social medias because that's all he thought he could do. That's all he thought. That's all the power he had, the position he's in, the followers he has. He knows people with multi-million following backgrounds and platforms. And his solution was, let's delete the account because I can't handle it. That's the sad reality, that regardless of who you are, you're having to get away from social media and nothing's being done about it. Imagine, you being in a position where you can reach millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people, and the only thing you can do is delete your account because there's nothing you can do. Like, it's just sad. We think of footballers to be these, machines, these robots, like not even human at times. And we forget that they are. They've got feelings just like myself, like like anyone. I remember, like, when we're in school and someone gets name called and stuff, the emotional abuse, the mental abuse it causes. And look at the times we're living in. It's COVID, and there's people out there thinking, you know what? Yeah, mental health is at an all-time low, regardless whether you're a multi-millionaire, multi-billionaire, or you're a person who's literally on the breadline, benefits, living in councils. It doesn't matter who you are. Mental health is at an all-time low, and the only thing we can do is go out there and abuse people for the fact that the skin color. Like, how mad is that? Like, it's crazy. Having an opinion on someone's performance is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't have a problem if someone said, yeah, he played crap today. He was shit. He had an awful game today. I don't want him at the club. I don't think he's good enough. That's all fine. I don't have an issue with someone, having an opinion like that. That's up for debate. That's nothing malicious. That's nothing abusive. That's nothing, that's in reality it shouldn't. If you're a footballer, if you're a sporting personality, you're being told that your performance isn't good enough and you can't handle that, there's not a lot that can be done. That's always going to happen. Whether you're in a stadium, whether you're on social media, that's going to be the case. So, solutions are a difficult one because it's not really up to us as people. It's about us coming together and wanting to fight it, call it out when you see it. But the problem is, when it happens, it's the sheer number and the volume of people who do it. It couldn't have just been 100 people. It couldn't have just been 10 or 15 people. It was thousands of people commenting, the monkey and the gorilla emoji constantly. That it just didn't stop there. It was then they decided, oh yeah, let's go to Marshall's wife and start abusing her as well because, abusing Marshall alone isn't enough. And the problem that we have is the people that we've put in power, their solutions are not great. Everyone's just screaming the same thing. Let's educate them. Let's ban them. Stop the games. Stop this, stop that. That doesn't do anything because the racists will always win in that situation. What you need to do is hit them where it hurts, which is prison sentences. I'm not saying you ruin a man's life, but when someone goes out and robs a bank or murders or regardless of the situation, what do? Their lives are pretty much done for. That's the approach we need to be taking because it is that bad. Hate speech is that bad. It can cause multiple deaths. It can cause so much to happen that we don't really think about it. We don't think about it to that serious extent because we don't see it. We're blinded by the media and what they want to show us. And the reality is we need to hit them harder. We need to find them. We need to prison them. It's not just about education. Yeah, keep that open. Educate them. Teach them that what they're doing is wrong. But you need to do stuff that's gonna potentially ruin any chances of a future. It's become acceptable. It's banter. It's this. It's that. People just don't take it seriously. Oh yeah, I didn't mean to call him a monkey in a racist way, but it's just banter in it, and it's just funny because I don't think banter should be at the cost of someone's skin color or their appearance or you know or anything like. I remember when Caroline Flack being obviously a big personality within the UK because of her appearances on Love Island and when she died, and then there were a few people on Love Island dying due to online abuse and hate, and the how the world got together and had a campaign to stop abuse, stop. That's what we need. We need to start trending this stuff. We need to start making hashtags that are going to trend the message, but sticking to it because far too many times, right? We have look at BLM and like how it's losing its momentum. Like we're not hearing about it as much. Like social media's cut to that. I'm not saying that BLM as an organization should be the one that we promote, but I'm just talking like generally things start to die and lose their sort of trendiness and lose their appeal because oh yeah, it's done now and it's been for a week. Let's just stop now. And that's the issue. It's it's maintaining that same momentum throughout. We can't just do something for a week and then forget about it and being like, yeah, we've done it and just leave it to that. We need to stick to it. We need to build that momentum. to when the right people hear it. Now we know the top people are hearing about racism, but guess what? They're not going to do anything about it because they haven't ever suffered it. They've been caged off from the realities of life and things that go on. We see it at a certain extent because we are at the forefront of everything. Whether you're a retail worker, whether you're on a social media influencer, the fact that people find this topic so hard to talk about and they're like, oh, do you know what? I'm not going to get into this because it's not something to talk about is part of the problem. It's not part of the solution. We need to be talking about it. We need to be making this something which we're able to talk about. It's like talking about, respecting women, for example. We have to be comfortable talking about it. It doesn't mean that, just because we're talking about it, that our kid's gonna come out to not being a good kid, or when we talk to our friends that they're not going to respect your opinion on the matter. It's the fact that we're not open enough about it. People hide away from talking about hate, racism, everything because it's too political. You get cancelled if you say the wrong thing, and many things. But guess what? Why should we care what people think when we're trying to stop something which is so bad? It's borderline hating someone. It some people don't realize the impact their words can have, and that's part of the problem. And we sit there, we can't tolerate it. We have to sit there and we have to think solutions. How do we prevent something like this from happening? Because it's not something which won't happen, and I think racism is something which will always linger, and it shouldn't, but it will. And even after what's happened to the Jews in World War II, when they've been put in chambers and gassed up and stuff, we still didn't learn. The slave trade hasn't made us any wiser. Rio Ferdinand put it perfectly when he said, racism. I believe it was Rio Ferdinand, or was it? I can't remember who said it, but I believe it was Ferdinand. That's who I remember saying it. Was that racism hasn't stopped or decreased or increased? It's just being recorded and it's being posted and it's being talked about. And the problem that we have is it's not talked about enough. And I remember when AJ talked about just shopping within your community, and when he made his statement. Now, in the heat of the moment, a lot of that gets put out of context. People think it's to do with, oh yeah, let's shop with the black community rather than shopping with just the community, helping the smaller people out, because that is essentially what gets us out. And the problem that we have is there's no longer that community cohesion within community. Let's be honest, how many people can sit there and honestly tell me that they go out and they speak to their neighbors, they speak to people that they may not regularly speak to. We don't have any community parties. Yes, granted, COVID is making it harder, but even before, many people, I remember the street that I moved into, we used to have alleyway parties. They used to shut the road off and bring bouncy castles and etc. Get all the kids involved, the parents involved, and they throw a street party. And the amount of people that said that's baffling you do that, and it goes to show there's no longer that community cohesion anymore. And that's another issue that we have, is because we don't integrate well. We tend to stay within our own little groups of people that we're comfortable with, that we've grown up the same way. And that's the issue. We need to start expanding our horizons and just, it's not about, yeah, I've spoken to people within that background. It's about generally going out there and making a difference, starting within your own communities. It doesn't mean that just because it doesn't exist in your area that we don't try and bring people together doing things. The major issue, and I think one of the biggest problems that we have, is when crime gets exposed in the way that the media portrays certain set of people or characteristics to other people. For example, when Raheem Sterling and his tattoo, that tattoo doesn't mean he's promoting gun violence. All it meant was his dad died by it. So he wanted to put something there as a message to people that, gun violence is wrong. And the way the media portrayed that, it was ridiculous. And this is not me digging people out when I make these comparisons, but when Sterling bought a house for his mum, and when Foden bought a house for his mum, the way the media, I'm not saying Foden hates Sterling, but it's the media that have a big agenda against people. And that fuels the fire. There's already a fire there. They're just adding oil to it. They're just adding, they're playing fire with fire there, and they're causing that divide. But that's the problem when people then take that divide and fuel their agenda with it. That's when racism becomes a problem. We need to not ignore it, but we just don't need to let that be a big part of our lives. We need to kind of just say, yeah, that's the media, and ignore it, not read it, not really take note of it, because it's when we take note that the media are saying stuff and they're bringing this divide in that it really causes a problem. I do hope you obviously enjoyed watching this. I know it's a bit longer and I went on a bit of a tangent. I did want to live stream this, but it was playing up, so I haven't been able to do that. But I do hope if you've got comments, if you want to speak about it, obviously my Twitter is just scrolling down at the bottom. You can comment on the video about anything. And I do hope to bring a live stream about this because it's not something which can just be talked about in a 20-minute, 25-minute video. It has to be constantly talked about, and solutions need to be drawn. There's got to be bigger people involved, and I hope you've enjoyed, and thank you for watching.